What's up, Ice and Fire fans? Welcome back to the House of Vine podcast and the long-awaited part 4 of the Dance with Dragons Epilogue. After a very long hiatus, I am glad to say that I am back on YouTube making content. I figured it was just time. So, without further ado, Kevan Lannister, Breakdown, part 4. Let's get started.
The three men walked together from the throne room. Outside, the snow was swirling round the outer ward, a caged beast howling to be free. "Have you ever felt such cold?" asked Sir Harris. "The time to speak of the cold," said Grand Maester Pycelle, "is not when we are standing out in it." He made his slow way across the outer ward back to his chambers. The others lingered for a moment on the throne room steps. "I put no faith in these mereish bankers," Sir Kevan told his good father. "You had best prepare to go to Bravos." Sir Harris did not look happy at the prospect. "If I must, but I say again, this trouble is not of my doing." "No, it was Cersei who decided that the Iron Bank would wait for their due. Should I send her to Bravos?" Sir Harris blinked. "Grace, that... Sir Kevan rescued him. "That was a jape, a bad one. Go and find a warm fire. I mean to do the same." He yanked his gloves on and set off across the yard, leaning hard into the wind as his cloak snapped and swirled behind him. The dry moat surrounding Maegor's holdfast was 3 feet deep in snow, the iron spikes that lined it glistening with frost. The only way in or out of Maegor's was across the drawbridge that spanned that moat. A knight of the King's Guard was always posted at its far end. Tonight the duty had fallen to Sir Meryn Trent, with Balon Swan hunting the rogue knight Darkstar down in Dawn, Loras Tyrell gravely wounded on Dragonstone, and Jaime vanished in the Riverlands. Only 4 of the white swords remained in King's Landing, and Sir Kevan had thrown Osmond Kettleblack and his brother Osfried into the dungeon, within hours of Cersei's confessing that she had taken both men as lovers. That left only Trent, the feeble Boros Blunt, and Qyburn's mute monster Robert Strong to protect the young king and royal family. "I will need to find some new swords for the King's Guard. Tommen should have 7 good knights about him. In the past, the King's Guard had served for life, but that had not stopped Joffrey from dismissing Sir Barristan Selmy to make a place for his dog, Sandor Clegane. Kevan could make use of that precedent. I could put Lancel in a white cloak," he reflected. "There is more honor in that than he will ever find in the warrior's sons."
So, our first passage in today's video picks up right where we left off in part 3 with the conclusion of Tommen's small council meeting. We left Sir Kevan as he began to head back to the Red Keep, accompanied by Swift and Pycelle. Both the Grand Maester and the Master of Coin previously told Kevan that they kind of fear for their safety, requesting a few Lannister guards. Pycelle seems to be highly suspicious of the Tyrells, though Kevan doubts that Mace would actually try to hurt any of them. Swift comments on the weather and Pycelle complains, saying you shouldn't talk about the snow while standing in it. This is actually the last time we're ever gonna see the Grand Maester alive, thank the gods. You think he's complaining about the cold now? Wait until he feels that bitter chill of death after being shanked a few dozen times. We'll talk about that when we get there. Speaking of the cold, it's important to point out the description of the weather in King's Landing and by extension, the South. Martin makes a point of having Sir Kevan describe the hard wind, the swirling snow, and that the moat around the holdfast is filled up with snow. This is Martin saying, this winter is going to be harsh. This next book is going to be harsh. Hence the title. As avid book readers, we know that references to winter in literature usually refers to death, old age, pain, loneliness, despair, and the end. In these books, winter is obviously associated with the others as well. Having the epilogue associated with winter, cold, and death We know that the next book will be riddled with it. Well, more than usual. So, after Pycelle leaves, Kevan turns to his good father and tells him that he admits that he puts no faith in the Myrish bankers and has made his decision to send them to Braavos. We already discussed before how allying themselves with Myr against Coddington would have been the smarter move, considering that the Golden Company just broke a contract with Myr, and the fact that the Iron Bank is already backing Stannis. But no, Braavos it is. By the way, we actually see Swift in Braavos during the Mercy sample chapter. Arya, disguised as a mummer named Mercy, kills one of the guards Sir Harry's had requested, who, luckily for her, just so happened to be Raff the Sweetling. So much for sending the Mountain's men to the wall like Lord Mace suggested. Anyway, we get more complaining from Swift that the throne's current financial predicament is not of his doing, not really believing this is his problem to fix, even though that's literally his job. Sir Kevan makes a jape that it's actually Cersei's fault for not paying back the Iron Bank, and that maybe they should send her instead. Now, during the small council meeting, Kevan had thought to himself that they could really use Littlefinger's help right now, that he always found ways to conjure up gold out of thin air. Oh, Sir Kevan, you sweet summer child. If only you knew that the realm's debt, by large, is actually all thanks to Peter Baelish, with his constant borrowing from Braavos and Lord Tywin. Requesting Littlefinger's help would only make things worse, since destabilizing the Iron Throne seems to be one of his main goals. Moving on, Sir Kevan gets back inside Maegor's Holdfast and passes Sir Meryn Trant, which gets him to start thinking about the goings-on of the current Kingsguard. First, Kevan mentions Sir Balon Swan and his hunt for Darkstar, Gerald Dane. So if you remember back in A Feast for Crows, Cersei tasked Sir Balon with bringing Myrcella and Trystane to King's Landing. However, this task was also accompanied by a plot to have Trystane killed on the way there. Sir Balon, according to Duran Martell, was going to falsely claim to have heard the brigands who would be the ones attacking the caravan screaming, "Half-man." Cersei's plot was ruined, however, with the whole Myrcella losing an ear thing. Now that Balon is with Abara and Areo Hotah heading to Darkstar's seat in High Hermitage, I can see only one of two things happening. One is that Areo and Abara find proof of Cersei's plot and end up killing him, telling the Iron Throne that it was actually Darkstar since he's already taking the fall for Sir Aerys. Or two, they do find Darkstar and he just murders the shit out of Sir Balon. Swan has just spent, like a month chilling and dining at how many different castles on his way to the Martells? He's gonna be slow, lethargic. Darkstar is incredibly dangerous and he cannot be slept on. Either way, Balon is probably gonna die. Next, we hear about Sir Loras. Now, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of whether or not Loras is actually on his deathbed. It doesn't really matter. Right now, for Kevan, all that matters is that Loras isn't in the city protecting his king. Third is a mention of Jaime and his disappearance. Don't worry, Uncle Kevan, he just ran off with the true love of his life. As for the other Kingsguard still in the capital, Osmond Kettleblack has been imprisoned, Meryn Trant, a mediocre swordsman at best who likes to beat little girls, the royal food taster Sir Boris, and Robert Strong, who is definitely a zombie. Kevan thinks how he should replace some of these men, using Sir Barristan's dismissal as precedent. He even thinks about putting a cloak on his own son, though Kevan doesn't know that his son has almost reached full zealot. Now let's move on with the chapter.
Kevan Lannister hung his snow-sodden cloak inside his solar, pulled off his boots, and commanded his serving man to fetch some fresh wood for his fire. "A cup of mild wine would go down well," he said as he settled by the hearth. "See to it." The fire soon thawed him, and the wine warmed his insides nicely. It also made him sleepy, so he dare not drink another cup. His day was far from done. He had reports to read, letters to write, and supper with Cersei and the king. His niece had been subdued and submissive since her walk of atonement. Thank the gods. The novices who attended her reported that she spent a third of her waking hours with her son, another third in prayer, and the rest in her tub. She was bathing herself 4 or 5 times a day, scrubbing herself with horsehair brushes and strong lye soap, as if she meant to scrape her skin off. She will never wash the stain away, no matter how hard she scrubs. Sir Kevan remembered the girl she once had been, so full of life and mischief, and when she flowered, had there ever been a maid so sweet to look upon? If Ares had agreed to marry her to Rhaegar, how many deaths might have been avoided? Cersei could have given the prince the sons he wanted, lions with purple eyes and silver manes, and with such a wife Rhaegar might never have looked twice at Lyanna Stark. The northern girl had a wild beauty, as he recalled, but however bright a torch might burn, it could never match the rising sun. But it did no good to brood on lost battles and roads not taken. That was a vice of old Don men. Rhaegar had wed Elia of Dorne. Lyanna Stark had died. Robert Baratheon had taken Cersei to bride. And here they were. And tonight his own road would take him to his niece's chambers and face to face with Cersei. I have no reason to feel guilty, Sir Kevan told himself. Tywin would understand that, surely. It was his daughter who brought shame down on our name, not I. What I did for the good of House Lannister. It was not as if his brother had never done the same. In their father's final years, after their mother's passing, their sire had taken the comely daughter of a candlemaker as mistress. It was not unknown for a widowed lord to keep a common girl as bedwarmer. But Lord Titus soon began seating the woman beside him in the hall, showering her with gifts and honours, even asking her views on matters of state. Within a year she was dismissing servants, ordering about his household knights, even speaking for his lordship when he was indisposed. She grew so influential that it was said about Lannisport that any man who wished for his petition to be heard should kneel before her and speak loudly to her lap. For Titus Lannister's ear was between his lady's legs. She had even taken to wearing their mother's jewels. Until the day their lord father's heart had burst in his chest, as he was ascending a steep flight of steps to her bed, that is. All the self-seekers who had named themselves her friends and cultivated her favour had abandoned her quickly enough when Tywin had her stripped naked and paraded through Lannisport to the docks like a common whore. Though no man laid a hand on her, that walk spelled the end of her power. Surely Tywin would never have dreamed that same fate awaited his own golden daughter. It had to be, Sir Kevan muttered over the last of his wine. His high holiness had to be appeased. Tommen needed the faith behind him in the battles to come. And Cersei, the golden child, had grown into a vain, foolish, greedy woman. Left to rule, she would have ruined Tommen, as she had Joffrey.
So we see Martin continuing to paint death all around Kevan with his snow-sodden boots. He has a glass of wine and starts thinking about the upcoming dinner with the king and his niece. Kevan says that Cersei has become submissive and spends all of her time either with Tommen, praying, or bathing. One of the big questions at the end of this book is whether or not Cersei has actually changed. Of course she's changed, but definitely not for the better. First of all, Kevan mentions that she spends a third of her time bathing and that she has been scrubbing herself with lye soap. Cersei is of course suffering from PTSD. These actions are commonly seen with people who have suffered sexual assault, and let's face it, that is exactly what the walk of shame is. Being forced to walk naked in public while the small folk assault you both verbally and physically, that would be massively traumatic for anyone. Did she deserve it? That's highly debatable. Personally, I freaking hate Cersei with a passion, but I don't think she deserved that part of her punishment. Kevan then goes on to dwell on paths not taken in regards to Cersei not marrying Prince Rhaegar Targaryen. He thinks how Robert's rebellion could have been avoided if Aerys had just agreed to Tywin's marriage proposal, that Cersei would have given Rhaegar the sons that he wanted. Oh, Kevin, you sweet summer child. That's so far from the truth. We all know that Prince Rhaegar was up to some shit. He was trying to make some children of prophecy, and that definitely wasn't going to happen with Cersei. No matter who Rhaegar was married to, he probably still would have ended up with Lyanna regardless. You're gonna have to mix that old northern wolf blood with the blood of old Valyria if you're trying to make the prince that was promised. Half lion Targaryen bastards won't cut it. Go and check out my Golden Lions Golden Dragons series. Next, Martin hits us with some bittersweet irony. Kevan reflects how his niece suffered a very similar experience as his Lord Father's mistress, whom Tywin stripped naked and paraded through the streets of Lannisport after Titus died. Tywin hated how this low-born woman held so much power in court and over their father. Tywin never would have done something like that as long as his father was still alive, the same way no one would have made Cersei do her walk of atonement while Tywin was alive. Now here's the thing, Sir Kevan is content with how things played out, thinking that Tywin would have done the same thing, that it was all for the greatness of House Lannister. No. First off, there never would have been a walk of shame if Tywin was alive, but that's beside the point. Let's say Tywin was alive off in Casterly Rock and he heard that his daughter was going to be tried for treason and forced to walk through the capital naked. Tywin started a war with the Tullys when Tyrion was kidnapped, and he hated Tyrion. What do you think he would have done for a child that he probably somewhat cared for? He would have started a war for the greatness of House Lannister because he wouldn't want his family looking weak. Ever. So let's stop here and save the dinner with Cersei and Kevan's murder for the final installment of the Kevan Lannister breakdown. I promise it won't be another 2 years. Make sure to let me know what you think down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and as always, share, like, and subscribe to stay updated and be the first to watch newly uploaded videos.